Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
At this point, it's our tradition to go around and introduce ourselves, and then I'll get this to introduce the speaker at the end. So why don't we start at the back over there?
My name is Mark.
Jay. I'm Al.
Peter.
Grisha.
David.
Jim.
Rob. Michael.
My name is Kat.
Jack. I'm Brad.
Terry.
Larry.
Matthew.
I'm Shunkin.
I'm David. Don. Jose.
I'm John.
My name is Michael.
Bill.
I'm Kaleo.
My name is Robert.
A couple more people coming in there. That's really good. Joe.
My name is Jim.
Great. And I will swallow. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Joe Rodriguez. He's a Soto Zen student from the Shunryu Suzuki lineage, studying under Furio Nancy Schroeder, who's the abiding abbess of the Green Gulch Farm Zen Center, and serving as a board member of the San Francisco Zen Center. As a business executive and longtime LGBT activist, his practice is to bring awareness, compassion, and forgiveness to daily life. And his topic, a very appropriate one for today, is meditating and practicing with Donald Trump. So, welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Well, I can't believe I chose that topic. I'm feeling very raw this morning. I got up at 4 a.m. to fly from a family retreat to be with you guys this morning. And my flight just got in at 8 o'clock, and I was feeling a little anxious, and I had like 2.5 hours before I had to show up. So I went down to Hillary Clinton headquarters and spent an hour texting people, which I'll get into a little bit. A lot of times when I do these Dharma talks, I feel very centered, and I've reflected a lot on the material that I'm going to present and I've been working with. And I just got to say, I'm a work in progress on this topic. So I am completely a beginner, and I have a few thoughts, and I think you guys do too. So thank you for having me this morning, and especially before this momentous presidential election. And I say momentous because I don't think we have faced such a stark choice for president and the direction of our country since 1969, when Richard Nixon beat Hubert Humphrey. And we know how all that turned out. But I really want to talk about viewing this election and this season from a spiritual perspective. I want to discuss the spiritual ways that I am practicing with this election, and especially my troublesome and fearful thoughts. For example, I found myself recently on the Bay Bridge behind a large white SUV with a big Trump bumper sticker on it. And my thought flashed through my head, what is this person doing in San Francisco? Or waking up at 4 a.m. and checking 538.com to see if the polls had changed. Or getting angry at my conservative uncle who left 3 snide remarks about Michelle Obama on my Facebook page. underneath these situations, I am anxious with all sorts of fears, some valid and some not so much. And my friends are anxious too. And I hear them talking about escaping into binge TV watching, a little too much food, maybe an extra glass of wine, a lot of sex, work, going to the movies, and other things to distract them from this campaign. They're really worried about the future of democracy, and I can understand it. So I have a question before we go into it too. Is anyone else anxious? If you're anxious about this election, just raise your hand. Okay, great. And I just those are some quick examples of how I am anxious. So if you could just give me like a sentence of how you're anxious. Anyone, we'll do a number of quick ones of these. Anyone want to start?
Can't sleep.
Can't sleep. Okay, great.
Short-tempered. Yeah. No cushion.
Cushion.
Stay ready.
Any other ways that you might be feeling anxious?
Can't stop reading about it.
Yeah, that's really great. Okay. Well, I could share all those. I mean, I was at the Enterprise car rental place. The guy was like, couldn't find my reservation. I almost jumped behind the desk and found it myself, so I understand. So let's be clear. This presidential campaign is a spectacle and may be one of the darkest and ugliest campaigns in modern history. And of course, if I put my partisan hat on as a Hillary Clinton supporter, I could argue why this is largely the fault of Donald Trump. But that's not why I'm here today. Instead, I want to share some insights with you about viewing this process from what I call, or what the Buddhists call, right view. And I've been really struggling. How can I have some compassion and empathy for people who are in the other end of the political spectrum for me? So I've been doing some reading. One of the saddest and most violent things I think we can do as human beings is to judge our fellow human beings and close our hearts to them. When we make our brothers and sisters into the other, we are capable of about doing anything to them, like humans have done in Syria, Cambodia, Germany, the Balkans, Mississippi, just to name a few. I'm especially aware of this tendency as I watch my ugly thoughts arise in my mind when I think of my relatives or other people's support for Donald Trump. And given the tenor of this campaign, I'm not alone. According to recent news articles, over 40% of Americans report tensions within their families because of political differences. And I just was with my family, and we had 2 Trump supporters at this family retreat. We agreed not to talk about politics, so it was alive and well in Phoenix. And after this election, I suspect there's going to be a lot of challenging conversations over turkey and stuffing. But as a Zen practitioner, I've been looking for ways to fully participate in politics and social change while still maintaining my interconnectedness with my friends and family who have different political and social views than my own. So I've been asking myself, how can I open my heart to other human beings who have different political beliefs than me? So I've been really working hard to change my mind about conservatives, rather than just wanting them to be bashed. In my search, I've come across 2 books that have given me a broader understanding on human nature as it relates to politics, suggesting that people's political beliefs tend to be as much a function of their biology and life experiences as anything is free choice. So let me explain. One of the books I came across was called The Cultural Creatives. It was a work of a sociologist, psychologist team of Paul Ray and Sherry Anderson, published in 2000, which surveyed thousands and thousands of Americans about their political views. The author coined the term cultural creatives to describe the large segment in America that tend to live in liberal places like the Bay Area, be concerned about the planet, believe in the importance of helping others, and are interested in their spiritual and psychological development, believe in education and equality. They are the society change makers, attending Buddhist lectures like this one, watching TED lectures, going to Burning Man. They usually vote for progressive candidates like Bernie Sanders or President Obama. And I suspect many of you fit that description. And they're about 20, according to these psychologists' team, they're about 25% of society. On the other end of the spectrum are what the authors call traditionalists, representing another 25% of the people. These people tend to have small town values, believe in the social order of religious conservatism, they believe in male leadership roles, and they believe in traditional male-female relationships. Again, they tend to vote for conservative candidates who talk openly about their fundamentalist Christian faith, and they typically support people like Ted Cruz. And then in the middle are what the authors call the modernists, people who are economically oriented, focused on material success, and really focus on things that are seen, that you can touch and feel. And while they may belong to mainstream religions, their values are more secular. And these people tend to be the independent voters. Or what the authors say, the more flexible middle, which has been swayed in the past by both Ronald Reagan on the right and Barack Obama on the left. So when I came across this book, the reason I'm taking you through this is when I heard these descriptions, I said, wow, this represents a lot of the people I know in my own life. I've grown up in small towns and in big cities. And the thing that I found really interesting was the author's findings suggest that one's worldview and mindset are largely involuntary, not a rational decision. The idea that people don't choose to be Democrats, Republicans, or independents. Their political outlook is a result of a variety of factors, including biology and life experiences. The net of this, when I read this book, it made me a little less judgmental of traditionalists or conservatives. And as an LGBT activist, it really focused my energy on the people in the middle who are changeable. Then this summer, I read another book by a guy named Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist. He wrote this book called The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. And you can see him on the TED Talk channel, and I can give you the names of these books if you want to know them. And this is what Jonathan argues. People are fundamentally intuitive, not purely rational, as economists and others have argued. In other ways, sometimes they vote against their own direct interest. And why do they do that? Well, he says, he talks about how the geneticists of today are starting to believe that people's genes tend to be hardwired to a certain moral perspective. Some brains tend to get pleasure from novelty, variety, diversity, and these people tend to be liberals. While conservative brains tend to resonate with the ideas of loyalty, authority, sanctity, purity. He argues that human beings are fundamentally groupish, and once they become part of a political team, they get ensnared in its grand narrative and adopt its point of view, especially those on the far right and the far left. And I remember talking about this with my Zen teacher, who remarked that being a Democrat or Republican is like rooting for a sports team. Once you choose a team, you tend to cheer on that team blindly. And I remember I was just thinking about myself in the last debate. I was cheering on Hillary Clinton when she was making good attacks and sort of rationalizing when she was deflecting tough questions. Well, she doesn't have to answer that. But maybe Jonathan Haidt's biggest idea is we need the insights and contribution of liberals and conservatives to flourish as a nation. We need the yin and yang make up a balanced whole, a healthy political life. And to me, this is really a Buddhist idea. We need everyone. We need the whole Sangha, traditionalists as well as cultural creatives, and the pragmatic modernists in the middle. We need all sorts of talents and perspectives and the countervailing forces in society. Liberals need people who can hold them accountable for their ideas, programs, and generosity. And conservatives need to be pushed to change, have their hearts opened, and consider other perspectives. And I just want to say, I'm often blinded by my judgments of conservatives. But as a Buddhist, I don't want to be intolerant of people that I sometimes consider to be intolerant. I need to keep framing how I view conservatives and traditionalists, not making them into the other. They're being true to their biology, experiences, and political teams. And I need to dialogue with people who disagree with me and look for common ground and honor our honest differences. And as a gay person, I think we've learned to appeal to the people in the middle by coming out. And as our community did with marriage equality, we started talking about the love and commitment of our relationships. And that was something that the middle group really could relate to. So the rest of my talk is going to be more casual, but I wanted to throw out this intellectual piece about how people, we sometimes, I don't know about you, but I was looking at that lady in that white SUV and I'm like, how could she think this way? How could she put a Trump sticker on her car and drive through San Francisco? And I think we have some clues to why that could be the case and why we actually need a combination of people in our society. So I'm just going to pause there, and then we'll talk about compassion and some of the practices that have been working in this election. But I just want to see if anyone has reactions or disagrees or whatever. Yes?
I guess one of my thoughts is that my view of Donald Trump is that he's neither liberal nor conservative, that he's exploiting a fear, an existing fear. So I think we also have to be careful about how we label people, because to me it seems like there's a sort of disordered personality there,
Right.
Who is in some ways very smart and other ways very stupid. But I think he's tapping into a lot of discontent and fear. And what I can't wrap my head around is it seems like those people are not going to be served by him at all. So I just think that being discerning about language, because I think part of spiritual life is also letting go of labels.
Oh, yeah.
So there's something useful about it, and then there are limits to the labels themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And Donald Trump is. We've had Donald Trumps throughout our history. There was a guy named Father Coughlin, I guess, in World War II, before World War II started, who was what they call a demagogue, like one could argue Donald Trump is, who is whipping up populist fear and anger about the war. And then Joe McCarthy after World War II, was another example of this. Yeah, I'm really not talking about them. I think they're more impresarios who really exploit populist feelings. And I'll actually even talk about compassion for Donald Trump in a minute. But the thing I wanted to really convey to you guys is like, one of the things I think that happens in our political discourse, and as a spiritual person, is like saying, how could people think that way? And if I just give them the enough facts, they'll change their perspective. Well, that's the way maybe a liberal brain works, but not necessarily what they call, these authors argue, they don't even use the term conservative, they use the term traditionalists. And they believe that things were better in the past because there's more control and it's safer, even though there was polio and wife beating and all sorts of exploitation. The past just seems always better. And you can see that if you really listen to people, oh, the past, make America great again. I mean, there's great examples. Those of you who are of a certain age, no, it wasn't that great for gay people back then, right? So, but I just think it's really important for us to have a frame on these people are not out of their minds. They're just made different than us. Because you find conservatives and liberals in the same family, same child rearing, almost same experiences. I mean, some variation, but generally the same thing. Yes.
I know a lot of the work around change with marriage equality and transgender issues has come through a lot of work done with focus groups that engage evangelicals and other people to try to figure out where they're coming from, and then to tell the story in a way that's a lot more, that generates compassion from them back, rather than just saying you're right, we're wrong, and kind of entrenchment. It's kind of, okay, where are they coming from, and where can we kind of bring the story and the message in that they can understand and have some compassion.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I mean, I was one of a handful of people, a couple of handful of people that passed this law that prohibited conversion therapy on gay kids in California. And one of my friends who was the leader of that movement, he is engaged in an ongoing dialogue with conservative Christians who care about kids in Utah, and they're mostly Mormons. And they've been talking and trying to find common ground. They totally disagree, but they've actually learned to really like each other and understand each other's point of view better. For me as an activist, though, I tend to believe, and I don't spend a lot of time trying to convert people on the other complete end of the spectrum. I actually focus my energies on the people in the middle, because they are the same people that have voted for Ronald Reagan and voted for Barack Obama. They are changeable, and they're pragmatic. Any other thoughts on this part? Well, you've really sort of mentioned where I want to go next, and that is, one of the things about the Buddhist path or the Buddhist way is it's really a compassion practice. And the first time I went to the Zen Center in San Francisco, I was meeting with the abbot, and he was like, we were talking, and he was like, okay, enough words. He says, can I see how you sit? And so I like did my best. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's got robes and everything. It's like he's a really respected guy. I felt really self-conscious. And I sort of sat like this, I think, at the time. And he says, can I adjust you? So he adjusted me so my heart was open. And what I'd like you to do, however you're sitting, you don't have to sit formally, but just notice your heart being open. Can you feel your heart being open rather than protecting it? And I think it's a really good thing for us to do over the next couple of days, because our heart is our power. People can beat the shit out of us, take our rights away, all that, but that we still have our connection to our heart. Our heart could be broken, but it's still here. So really one of the things that my Zen priest said to me is, when you're lifting weights, when you're making love, when you're making cookies, when you're taking out the garbage, keep that heart open. That's our practice. I really think it's a great thing, and especially during these times. So I've been trying to cultivate compassion for Donald Trump. So I've been doing a lot of reading about his childhood, his father, his business life, and his family. And two things have been telling. There was an article in the New York Times recently that despite all the adoring crowds, this man has very few close friends. No matter how much attention he gets, he still craves more. Now, I could really pathologize that and say that's not a good quality in our president or our future president. And I probably believe that. But, I also know that Abraham Lincoln loved the crowds and loved the attention. But I think he had a different sort of perspective. And even in myself, there's a part of me that, part of my shadow I share with Donald Trump. Hopefully my shadow hasn't taken me over as much as maybe Donald Trump's shadow. The other story that come about Donald Trump that really made a big impact on me was from the Washington Post. And I heard this reporter talk about Donald Trump appeared before the Washington Post editorial board. Washington Post, arguably one of the three most important newspapers in the country. And when he appeared in front of the editorial board, rather than just completely focus on those editors, he asked them to bring in a TV and turn it to Fox News so he can be monitoring while he's talking to these people about what's going on in the world. Now, you guys and gal, you guys have all, I think, had some basic training about meditation, right? And there's this thing called the monkey mind, where our mind gets distracted. And that's just part of being a human being. And especially we practice with that in meditation so we can be more present with ourselves and our life. And, it's our practice. It's sort of the center of our practice. So I just thought, wow. And after that article I read about him doing that, I just thought, I just watched him on the campaign trail. This guy is anxious. He is just like, he can't sit still. His mind is really distracted. And I can have compassion for that because my mind can be that same way. Again, even though I think he's maybe not the best leader for our country and may even change our democracy in ways that I would find that are unconstitutional, I still want to be able to connect with him as not make him the other. I might even say this man is dangerous for our society, but I still want to have some heart connection to the person. And that's my decision. But I just feel that is one of the most basic qualities of this path, is finding interconnectedness with people we even detest. And I really feel the suffering of someone who can't be still, who needs massive ego gratification, what maybe psychologists would call a narcissist. And I also feel compassion for many of the Trump supporters. I know they're scared, they're angry, they're fearful of change, they're cynical about our political system. And, part of my family is from West Virginia. And West Virginia used to be a very blue state. And the reason it was a very blue state was West Virginia was largely rescued by FDR during the Great Depression. and put a lot of people to work and provided basic income, Social Security and other things, Medicare. And one of the things that happened is that state has become red, and West Virginia is one of the most depressed states in the Union because their primary industry, coal mining, is on its way out. I don't care if Donald Trump becomes president. The future of coal is not bright, obviously. So, but in my family there, about the best job you can hope for is working at a Walmart. So it's not a great place. So, and most of my family there are Trump supporters. So I just want to open this conversation about compassion in this election, with Donald Trump, Trump supporters, family members who are on the different political side, and just see what you guys are thinking, and even anything that I'm saying makes sense to you. Yes, Jay.
So, going back to your talk about how we need the yin and the yang, and then, when you look at it at a sort of a macro way, you recognize that that's true, and that there's somewhere or another a balance in the world for that. One of the things that I see in this election is the way hatred has been unleashed in this country. Racism, misogyny, anti-LGBT, people talking about killing Hillary Clinton if she gets in, abortion, right? People are feel very strongly anti-abortion, that sort of thing. And we're not going back. The country has been dominated by white, Christian, heterosexual males. The white population is diminishing. There are women who are gaining positions of power. Christianity and a lot of religions are losing their hold in a lot of parts of the country. People are identifying themselves more and more as atheists. And they're just, they used to be angry. I think there's been a lot of anger and fear for many years, but people used to suppress it in a way that they're just not suppressing it anymore. And so, the things that you're talking about, discussing with family, I feel like on one-on-one with family, because I have also traditionalist people in my family, and I can talk with them in such a way that at least it kind of quells, the upheaval. But my biggest concern, is the anxiety that I feel that is out there in the country beyond any kind of influence that I have on the people I see day to day in my life. It's just out there and problematic for the country because they're just not going to be quiet, and they're not going to go away.
Yeah, I just want to say, and I'll get to you guys. Again, the traditionalist mindset is very change resistant. So you think about all the changes that are happening economically. I mean, the way we used to view careers, like 1 or 2 jobs, and now it's like 5 jobs. Kids coming out of college with $25,000, $50,000 worth of debt. An African American president, a woman president. For that mindset, this is hard. This is really hard. And I'm not justifying it, but it's just hard. So there's a lot of anxiety. So I see you, and you, and the dude.
Yeah. So when I leave the Bay Area and I travel through a county like Lake County or somewhere in the Central Valley, I see a lot of poverty, and they're really dismal places, and I can see people who don't have health care, who don't have the kind of services that we, or the quality of life that we have here, and it's horrible, and I see that is not how things need to be, and I can see why those people feel aggrieved. But I think that I don't know, the idea that you know that I think there's a myth here, which is that people who are poor and aggrieved are supporting Donald Trump. And the reason I say that is that I was just listening to NPR the other day, and the median income of a Donald Trump supporter, median family income, is $72,000. That's more than I have ever made in my life. So I think it's true on the one hand that the people who are aggrieved and who truly are disenfranchised have found in Donald Trump someone who can channel their very justified, anger and fears. But I think that's only half the story. Who are these people who have median salary of $72,000 and they're supporting Donald Trump?
I would just say this: it's like back to that frame. You're right. It's not monolithic on the right or the left. And I don't want to go too far in the political realm. I want to try to stay this in the spiritual realm. I think during periods of extreme change in society, people get scared. I mean, one of my family friends, two Christmases ago, a family friend at my parents' dining table started talking to how she feels oppressed to be a white person in our society. And this is a woman who taught classics at a liberal arts college. She knows the greatest books. She's read the greatest books, and she was telling me she was a victim. So I proceeded to tell her, let me tell you what it's really like to be discriminated against as a gay person. And I did a little Velvet Rage on her. And but you're right. It's not just a. But I also want to get Mark and David, and then let's go with you. You had your hand up first. Yeah, you. Yeah. Did you have?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, David.
Well, I come from Mormon background. I grew up in Salt Lake City, and I spent much of my adult life trying to change my parents' attitude about gay rights and other political issues, but more personally about me and my choices. And I spent a lot of time trying to change their minds, thinking that rational dialogue with them would somehow make a difference. And 2 years ago, I really decided it was really a complete waste of time. And but I realized that approaching that kind of prejudice or that kind of closed-mindedness or whatever you want to call it is really destroying me as much as anything. Coming from a place of feeling oppressed, feeling like I've been discriminated against, feeling like I have lacked opportunities that other people have. I decided it was really unhealthy for me. And, coming from a Buddhist perspective, trying to open up to what I see as a bigger picture, realizing that having loving kindness, coming from a point of loving kindness, was really the best approach for me. So I sort of went through this evolution, but I realized that, okay, that's one thing, coming from a point of view of loving kindness and letting go of my feeling of being discriminated against and being abused, but also not also really establishing boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's really the key for me, is realizing that I can have a loving kindness point of view towards my mother, but I don't need to interact with her. And the same thing is true with the political cesspool we're living in today. For me, I go on Facebook or whatever. I don't need to. There's a lot of people that are trying to change people's mind on Facebook and whatever. I don't need to read that.
No.
Because I know that it's not changing my mind, and people are, you want to go swimming in a cesspool, that's your choice. It's not something I need to do. And really, I've stopped. I really have decided that establishing really strong boundaries for myself is so healthy for me, has been really healthy for me. So this whole thing, I guess I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Moving ahead and feeling like I can protect myself and channel my energy into a direction without necessarily feeling angry or bad about everyone that doesn't agree with me. That's where I'm coming from now.
Yeah. Well, I think, the idea of having boundaries and an open heart completely go together. If you ever saw I think the crest of Richard the Lionhearted had a heart and a sword. And I think we have to be, as a group of people that have been discriminated against a lot and rejected by our own families, or not completely seen by our own families, it's super important that we have really good boundaries in life, in our relationships, our dealings with families, and at the same time be open-hearted in general for our own benefit, not to make anyone or please anyone or appease anyone. So I think it's a really good way of working that. And there's some people that, I don't spend much time trying to convince traditionalists. The people in the middle that I feel like I want to have a relationship with, I don't even try to convince them. I just try to tell them my experience of life. It's less convincing and sort of like, here's my life experience. And we know that has worked because the coming out strategy at Harvey Milk was really based on that. That changeable middle has been really moved. Well, I want to just talk about some practices during this time, because I think let's get real. I've gone from theoretical to heart to practices, and so here are some of the practices that I'm really employing during this presidential period. So I'm trying to meditate most mornings. I don't know how that felt for you guys meditating as a group, but it felt really good to me. And the last couple of days I didn't have an opportunity to meditate because I was around family on an air mattress and all that stuff. And then, tonight at 6 o'clock, come hell or high water, I'm going to the gym because I want to be in my body. I need to get out of my head and I need to be in my body. And I'm going to try to find a Stairmaster or something where I don't see the screens. And the other thing is, the power of doing is so great. So last Friday, not this past one, but 10 days ago, when the FBI letter came out, I was really upset. I think a lot of people were upset. I'm like, oh no, we're going to lose. So the next morning, I found the headquarters, the address for Hillary Clinton's headquarters here in San Francisco, went down to it. It's 101 Van Ness, and I'll tell you that again later on. It's at Van Ness and Geary. It's the old Kron building, that big cement building. And I went in there with I was feeling vulnerable and anxious and everything. And I met the most amazing people. And there was about 100 of us. And they have this new technology where you can text, because you can text swing voters, and you text them with their phone, and you just tap. You're not allowed to send them this via computer, because unless they opt in, you have to. So that day we sent 300,000 text messages. And it felt really powerful. When we were helping people, people were sending us notes saying that lock her up. We didn't care. You just sort of you just let it all roll off your back. So that's one of the things I did. And speaking of technology, I have taken the Facebook app off my phone because I find Facebook particularly insidious when it comes to fear. And I only allow myself to go into Facebook once a day. I've unprogrammed my car radio, so I have no choice. I use the code to unprogram it. And I need periods where I just am driving. Oh, look, the Salesforce Tower is getting really tall. Sun on my face, just really being in my body. I don't check the news or Facebook after 9 p.m. And I'm trying to spend time with my friends, with my phone off, and just talking. Because the power of Sangha and community is really powerful. That's why I'm glad you guys are here today. I need you guys as much as you need to hear from me. Just talking about this stuff. And one of the things is if you go down to the Hillary headquarters or the Move On headquarters, or even if you're a Trump supporter, I guess go down to the Trump supporter headquarters, it's great talking to other people who are anxious. And most of the volunteers that were down there this morning, they were all talking about how anxious they were. I mean, in all walks of life, gay, straight, old, young, millennial, retiree. It was really cool. So I'm going to actually be there from 12 to 6 o'clock today. And there's probably going to be 2,000 visitors in that, or volunteers in that building. So I encourage you. But I really encourage you to really look at your use of technology. Because there is we know, as Andrew Sullivan said, there's this gay blogger, Andrew Sullivan, commentator. He wrote an essay for New York Magazine called "I Used to Be a Human Being." And it talks about how his use of technology really almost destroyed his health in a way HIV never did, and his peace of mind. And he's really come back to living in the present, not blogging 18 hours a day. And one of the ways he's really done that is through meditation. He's really using a lot of Buddhist practices. So I think it's really important to be mindful, especially now as we're in this, because technology is all around us. In fact, on the United Airlines flight, I didn't even have a choice. The video was just continuing to run in front of my eyes. I was hitting the dimmer switch, nothing worked. Finally, I put the safety card, I jammed it in there so I couldn't see anything. So I just want to hear, just to really finish this up, what are some of the practices, briefly, what are some of the practices that you guys are using to deal with this? Any suggestions, ideas, since we're all in this together? Any thoughts? Yes.
I'm so not adept at dealing with this. But a couple of days ago, I just said, I want my life back. I want I want some peace in my heart. And I do not want to be a creature spewing hate and fear towards my fellow citizens. And bolstered by some good poll news. But I'm much happier. I'm not checking 3 times an hour. I heard my sister say, I need a new poll every half hour. That's it, stop. And I don't think it's a spiritual bypass. I just think the peace in our heart is more real than the phantasmagoria that the media has allowed to happen and feed on and make money on. And I recovered my faith in the decency of my fellow Americans. I don't believe, I'm choosing to believe that we can recognize decency when we see it. And so I'm much calmer. I don't know if I'm really pulling it off, but for the past 72 hours it's been working just to get my own mind back rather than be a slave to this unbelievable horse race that's been going on for 2 years. It's just astonishing what we've allowed ourselves to get sucked into. Anyway, I think America has a lot of homework to do about what we've been through. But also just thinking about Donald Trump, there's a human being who's going to most likely have a fall that he is absolutely unprepared to take with such a fragile ego and so addicted to the roar of the crowds. And I don't know, it's like seeing a wounded dog. I just am trying to get my heart back and not have it be filled with hate and desperation and fear.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Joe. Great talk today. I think everything you're talking about, meditating daily, exercising, turning off electronics, it's all about getting into the here and now and really being present with every moment. And I often think to myself, is Donald Trump in this room? And I don't have to worry about him. He's not president. Something terrible might happen. It's not happening right now. And that really helps me get centered. Just paying attention.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful thing. I was thinking the same thing today. I was thinking, he's not president. And even if he becomes president, in the here and now, I have great faith in myself and my fellow human beings. There's some things, there's this Venn diagram. Things that are important and things you can control. And where they overlap.
Just a little.
Yeah. And so here's what I can control. I've given pretty much the maximum money I can give but I've been thinking, maybe I won't go to Starbucks today. And I'm going to give that $5 to Hillary Clinton. We do that, it's a movement. I tell you, I'm having so much fun just pressing this button. Because the research shows that one text message is as effective as an in-person door knock. And it's about 1,000 times more efficient. So I'm having a great time using this new technology on itself. But I'm not checking 538.com. And I'm tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up and I need to trim the garden. And then I'm going down to Hillary Clinton headquarters, and then I'm going to work. And then I'm going back to Hillary Clinton headquarters. So I'm going to meditate and I'm going to exercise. So and I'm going to talk to my friends in between some of those things. So those are some of the things I really encourage you guys to do that work for me. See if it works. I'll tell you, having nonstop media is crazy making. As much as I like Terry Gross, it's time to turn it off. So I know we're coming up to the end here.
About 5 minutes.
I just want to say, make no mistake, I'm anxious about Tuesday because I really care about democracy and my personal and my community's freedoms. And I just care about this country, which I think most of you do. But I also am trying to use this election as a way to come home. Coming home to a broader understanding of my fellow human beings. Coming home to my own love and compassion. Coming home to what you just said as an embodied self in this moment, here and now. And really coming home to myself. How can I really hold myself and care for myself during a challenging time? And self-care has not always come the easiest to the LGBT people. We've been trained to take care of others, but I want to really take care of myself right now. So I want to thank you. And you know, I'd love to hear any more ideas if you want to share with me one-on-one. I invite you, just to remind you, you can join me today and tomorrow at 101 Van Ness.
1001.
What?
1001.
Yeah, did I? Sorry.
At O'Farrell.
Yeah, at O'Farrell. Well, even more. It's the old Cron building. It's right across from the AMC movie theater. There's all sorts of parking that's free today. It's really a fun vibe, and I really enjoy it. And thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you, Joe. Well, exactly what we needed to hear. At least what I needed to hear, so thanks again. Do we have any announcements? Yeah.
I'm your host for the day. Anyone here for the first time? Okay. We have hot water and tea, and there's some refreshments out there. The cookies are gluten-free. If you have tea, just put your cups in the sink and we'll take care of it. I'll be going around with a Donna bowl. We encourage you to let your generosity flow into the direction of the Sangha, which does so much good stuff. Guys who would like to go out to lunch typically assemble at the door around 12:30. And I know Kay is not here, but there may be some flyers out there. He is hosting the annual GBF Thanksgiving at his home. This is Kay Matsuda, and I think more information will be coming if you would like to go to that potluck. It's lovely. In the East Bay. Also, I sing with the San Francisco Choral Society, and next Saturday night and Sunday afternoon at the Calvary Presbyterian Church on Fillmore at Clay. We're singing a collection of pieces written to be accompanied by organ. Bruein magnificent requiem. There's a foray piece called Cantique pour Jean Racine that has brought people to their knees. It's so gorgeous. There are more motets by Bruein and another piece. Anyway, it's 8 o'clock on Saturday, 4 o'clock on Sunday, and it's beautiful. I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Any other announcements? I should announce our next speaker next week is going to be my fellow Cuban American, Emilio Gonzalez, who does Tai Chi and Qigong practice. So it will be a kinetic way of decompressing from the election and preparing for what needs to be done then. So no other announcements then it's time to do our dedication of merit. Thank you once again. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow, and may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.